One stormy night, I was home alone while my parents were out. The wind howled, and the rain pounded against the windows, making the house feel cold and eerie. I decided to order a pizza to distract myself and make the night more enjoyable. After placing the order, I settled on the couch and turned on a scary movie, trying to keep my mind off the storm. As the movie played, the thunder rumbled, and shadows danced across the walls, making the atmosphere even creepier. About 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I jumped up, my heart racing, and grabbed some cash. I peeked through the peephole but saw no one there. Confused, I slowly opened the door, and there on the porch was the pizza box, but no delivery person in sight. A chill ran down my spine. I picked up the box, closed the door quickly, and locked it. Feeling uneasy, I checked the windows to see if anyone was outside, but the yard was empty. Shrugging it off, I returned to the couch, trying to shake the strange feeling. I opened the pizza box, and inside was a note. It read, "Enjoy your pizza, while you can." My heart skipped a beat, and I looked around, feeling more anxious. I thought it was a prank, but it didn't feel right. Ignoring the note, I tried to watch the movie and eat my pizza, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the house made me jump. Then I heard a soft knock on the back door. Terrified, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I approached the back door slowly, my hands shaking. As I reached for the doorknob, the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. My phone was the only source of light. I took a deep breath and opened the back door. There was nothing but the rain pouring down and the empty backyard. I closed the door quickly, locked it, and backed away, my mind racing. I tried calling my parents, but the call wouldn't go through. The storm must have knocked out the signal. Suddenly, I heard footsteps upstairs. Panic set in as I realized someone might be in the house. I grabbed a kitchen knife for protection and crept toward the staircase. The footsteps grew louder, and my heart pounded in my chest. As I reached the top of the stairs, I saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound brave. The figure didn't respond but started moving toward me, its shape becoming clearer in the dim light. I turned and ran back downstairs, hearing the figure following close behind. I dashed into the living room, desperately searching for a place to hide. I ducked behind the couch, clutching the knife, trying to control my breathing. The footsteps entered the room, slow and deliberate. I peeked out and saw the figure, now clearly a man, looking around. His eyes scanned the room, and he smiled, a sinister grin that made my blood run cold. "I know you're here," he taunted, his voice low and chilling. Suddenly there was a loud bang on the front door and the figure turned, distracted. I seized the opportunity and sprinted out from my hiding spot, running toward the back door. I flung it open and raced into the storm, the cold rain hitting my face as I sprinted toward the neighbor's house. I banged on their door, shouting for help. My neighbor opened the door, startled, and quickly let me in. I explained everything, still trembling. They called the police, who arrived shortly after and searched my house, but the intruder was gone. Later, my parents returned, worried sick. I told them everything, and they promised never to leave me home alone during a storm again. The pizza and the mysterious note haunted me for weeks. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and I knew I'd never forget that terrifying night. From then on, I was much more careful, and the thought of ordering pizza alone made me uneasy. The stormy night had changed everything, leaving me with a lingering fear of what lurked in the shadows. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to a channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share the stories with your friends and family. Thanks. One stormy night, I was home alone while my parents were out for dinner. The rain poured down, and the wind howled outside, making me feel uneasy. I tried to distract myself by watching TV, but then the lights flickered, and the screen went black, plunging the house into darkness. I grabbed my phone to use as a flashlight and started walking around the house. That's when I heard faint whispers coming from the walls. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the whispers grew louder, almost as if they were trying to talk to me. "Help us," the voice whispered. My heart pounded as I stood there frozen. "Who's there?" I called out, but no one answered, just more eerie whispers. I felt compelled to follow the sound, even though I was scared. The whispers led me to the basement door, which creaked open on its own. Shivering, I stepped down the dark stairs, using my flashlight to guide me. The whispers became clearer. "Help us, please." In the corner of the basement, I spotted an old, dusty mirror. The whispers seemed to come from inside it. As I got closer, I saw faint figures trapped behind the glass, their faces twisted in fear. "Please set us free," one of them whispered. I felt a mix of terror and sympathy. Unsure of what to do, I reached out and touched the mirror's surface. Suddenly, a cold wind filled the basement, and the figures began to fade. "Thank you," they whispered, disappearing into the darkness. The mirror cracked, and the whispers stopped. I raced upstairs, my heart still racing. The lights flickered back on, and everything seemed normal. But I knew I would never forget the whispers from the walls. When my parents returned, I told them everything, but they didn't believe me. They thought it was just a story to scare them. But I knew the truth. From that day on, I never stayed home alone during a storm again. I often wondered who the trapped figures were and what had happened to them. Every time I passed by the basement door, I felt a chill run down my spine, remembering their pleas for help. Months passed, and I tried to push the memory to the back of my mind, but on stormy nights I could still hear faint whispers echoing in my ears. It was as if the house remembered too. I avoided the basement, but the memory lingered. One day I decided to research the history of our house. I went to the local library, digging through old newspapers and records. I discovered that many years ago a family had lived in our house, and they mysteriously disappeared during a terrible storm. Rumors circulated that they were trapped in the house, their spirits unable to move on. This revelation sent shivers down my spine. I realized that the figures in the mirror might have been that family, pleading for release. My heart ached for them, and I wished there was more I could have done. One evening, as another storm approached, I felt an urge to return to the basement. I knew it was risky, but I felt a strange connection to the spirit. Armed with my flashlight, I descended the creaky stairs once more. The basement was just as I remembered, dark and cold. The cracked mirror stood in the corner, silent and eerie. I approached it cautiously, my heart racing. "I'm here," I whispered. "Is there anything I can do?" To my surprise, the mirror shimmered slightly, and faint outlines appeared once more. "Thank you," they whispered, their voices barely audible. "You set us free, but we are still connected to this place." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and compassion. "Is there any way to help you move on?" I asked. "There is a key," one figure whispered. "A keepsake hidden in this house. Find it, and we can be released." Determined, I searched the basement, sifting through old boxes and dusty shelves. Finally, in an old chest, I found a small rusted key. It felt warm in my hand, almost as if it pulsed with energy. Holding the key, I returned to the mirror. "I found it," I said, my voice trembling. "Place it against the mirror," they instructed. With a deep breath, I pressed the key to the glass. A bright light enveloped the room, and I heard faint voices saying, "Thank you. We are free." The mirror shattered, and I felt a rush of wind, but this time it felt warm and comforting. The figures faded, and the basement was silent once more. I climbed back upstairs, feeling a sense of relief and closure. The whispers were gone, and the house felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. I knew the spirits were finally at peace. When my parents came home, I didn't tell them what happened. It felt like a personal experience, a connection between me and the spirits that once haunted our house. From that day on, I no longer feared storms. I knew that the spirits had found their peace, and in a way, so had I. The whispers from the walls had led me to a greater understanding of the house's history and the lingering connections between the past and present. In my small town, there was an old house everyone said was haunted. It stood at the end of a lonely street, shrouded in mystery and overgrown bushes. Stories circulated about strange noises and eerie lights. One night while my parents were out, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to explore the house. With a flashlight in hand, I pushed open the creaky front door. The air inside was musty, filled with the scent of decay and dust. The floors creaked under my feet, and cobwebs clung to the corners of the ceiling. As I walked through the dark hallways, a shiver ran down my spine, as if someone, or something, was watching me. I began my exploration, starting in the living room. The furniture was old and covered in sheets, adding to the eerie atmosphere. I moved to the kitchen, where rusty utensils hung on the walls, and the silence was deafening. Upstairs, the bedrooms were filled with broken furniture and dusty mirrors. Each room held a sense of abandonment, as if the house had been forgotten by time. Just as I was about to leave, feeling a mix of disappointment and relief, I noticed a door at the end of the hallway. It was locked, but something about it drew me in. My heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. What could be behind that door? Determined to find out, I decided to search the house for a key. My search led me to the basement, where the air was even colder, and the shadows seemed to dance on the walls. In the corner, I found an old rusty key hanging on a nail. It looked ancient, and my fingers trembled as I grabbed it. With a sense of purpose, I hurried back to the locked door. The key fit perfectly, and as I turned it, the door creaked open, revealing a small, dark room. In the center stood a dusty mirror covered with a cloth. My curiosity piqued, and I pulled the cloth away, revealing my reflection. But something was off. My reflection didn't look quite right. Suddenly, my reflection smiled back at me, but I wasn't smiling. My heart pounded in my chest as the reflection stepped out of the mirror, transforming into a shadowy figure. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, its voice echoing in the small room. I stumbled backward, terrified. The figure advanced toward me, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Panic surged through me, and I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. The room grew colder, the air thick with a sense of dread. The shadowy figure approached, its hand reaching out. "Stay with me," it whispered, its voice chilling and seductive. I felt a coldness seep into my bones as it touched me, and I screamed, closing my eyes tightly, hoping it was just a nightmare. When I opened my eyes, I found myself back in the hallway, the door shut tight behind me. The house was silent again, but I knew the shadow was still there, waiting. My heart raced as I sprinted out of the house, not looking back until I reached the safety of my home. Once inside, I locked all the doors and windows, trying to shake the feeling of being watched. I never spoke of what happened in that old house, the fear still fresh in my mind. The locked door was a warning, one I heeded well. I knew I'd never go back. From that night on, I always felt like someone was watching me, a shadow lurking just out of sight. The memory of the mirror and the shadowy figure haunted my thoughts, a reminder of the danger that lay within that old house. I avoided the street where it stood, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow was somehow connected to me, lingering in the corners of my mind. The town continued to talk about the haunted house, spinning tales of ghosts and spirits. I listened but never joined in, knowing the truth of what lurked within. The shadow was real, and the warnings were clear. Curiosity had led me into the depths of darkness, and I narrowly escaped. As the seasons changed, the haunted house remained a fixture in the town, a reminder of the unknown. And though I moved on, a part of me remained connected to that night, the memory of the shadow a constant presence. I learned that some doors are better left unopened, some mysteries better left unsolved. The haunted house became a symbol of the unknown, and I respected the boundaries it set. I never went back, but the shadow's whisper lingered, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown.